Hey there everyone, welcome to my latest episode of Nostalgic Things, and today we're looking at Sega. What's going on, guys? Welcome to my third episode of Nostalgic Things, and in today's episode we're going to be looking at video games, which was a big part of my childhood, and in particular one company that produced many of the games and consoles that are absolutely dear to my heart from my childhood and sort of early teenage years, and that is Sega. The theme for this video was chosen by a poll that I put up on Twitter. So some of you guys voted and chose Sega to be the theme. Which is great because I love talking about Sega. So we're going to take a little look into the history of Sega, some of the games, consoles and characters from the past. We're going to look at some of the old adverts, and I've got a Funko Pop Sega related to show you as well. Firstly, let's delve a little into the history of the company that is Sega. Back some time ago, Service Games made jukeboxes and slot machines that they sold to the military. They relocated to Tokyo in 1951 and merged with another arcade manufacturer, Rosen Enterprises, in 1965. They then called themselves Sega by taking the first two letters of Service and the first two letters of Games, S-E and G-A, and making the word Sega. In the 70s, Sega prospered heavily from the arcade boom, and then in the 80s they moved into the home console market. From the SG-1000 to the Dreamcast, Sega have released some amazing consoles. So next we're going to take a look at three of their best through the adverts that promoted them.
Sega challenges you with the ultimate video game, the Sega Master System.
Hang on!
With more accurate control, more detailed graphics, more levels of play.
Awesome!
The Sega Master System comes with power-based 2 control pads, light phaser, and 2 great video games, Hang On and Safari Hunt.
Gotcha!
And with other games like Rambo, Outrun, and Choplifter, the excitement never stops. The Sega Master System. The challenge will always be there.
The Master System was an 8-bit console and was launched in Japan in 1985 as the Sega Mark III, but was redesigned for the US release and renamed the Master System in 1986. It launched here in the UK and Europe in 1987 and in 1989 Brazil, where it is still hugely popular to this day. The Master System could play both cartridges and Sega cards, which were considerably cheaper but had a lower storage capacity than cartridges. The later Master System 2 had the card slot removed. The Master System was released as a direct competitor to the Nintendo Entertainment System, or NES, but didn't fare well against it in Japan and US regions. But here in the UK and Europe, it was a very different story, and then later also in Brazil. It used more up-to-date hardware, but this was not enough to overturn Nintendo's dominance and market share in the US and Japan. The game library also lacked, mainly due to the licensing policies Nintendo had already had with developers for exclusivity. Sales of the console have estimated to be in the region of 13 million units. This does not include recent sales in Brazil. Games in the library included Alien Syndrome, Shinobi, and Double Dragon.
And so it was, late in the 20th century, that a pox fell upon the land, a plague of home videos that were limited in intelligence. There was brain drain, and terminal boredom swept the countryside. The maker looked down and was not pleased by what he saw, and said, "This is not good." And so it was, he brought forth Genesis, a system with twice the power, twice the intelligence, twice the challenge, twice...
The Megadrive was a 16-bit console released in 1988 in Japan, followed by the US in 1989 as the Genesis. Later, in 1990, it came to Europe and other regions again as the Megadrive. It didn't fare well in Japan against Nintendo's Super Famicom or NEC's PC Engine, but it had considerable success in the US, Europe, and Brazil. Contributing to its success was its library of games and the popularity of Sega's Sonic series. And also aggressive youth marketing, which positioned it as the cool console for kids and teenagers to own. 2 years later, it gained considerable competition from the Super NES, sparking what was deemed by the media as a console war.
This is the day you have trained for. The day.
The Dreamcast was released in 1998 in Japan, followed by September 1999 in the US and October 1999 in Europe. It was the first 6th generation console, preceding Sony's PlayStation 2, Nintendo's GameCube, and Microsoft's Xbox. It followed Sega's previous console, the Saturn, which went massively unnoticed across the globe. The Dreamcast was Sega's final home console, marking the end of the company's 18 years in the console market. The company decided to change its focus and just become a third-party game developer. It had a subdued reception in Japan, but had successful launches in the US and Europe initially, after large marketing campaigns, but interest steadily declined as Sony built up hype for the upcoming PlayStation 2. Sales did not meet expectations. Despite several price cuts and after a change of leadership, Sega discontinued the Dreamcast in 2001. Although it had a short lifespan, many people thought the console was ahead of its time, and its library contains many creative and innovative games like Crazy Taxi, Jet Set Radio, and Shenmue. It was also the first system to include a built-in modem for internet support and online play.
I think Ojimbo got hold of a bad taco.
NFL 2K on Sega Dreamcast. It's thinking.
Obviously, Sega had some other amazing consoles in their time, but these were three of my favourite consoles personally that they've produced. Next, I've got a Sega-related Funko Pop to show you. So if you follow my channel, guys, most of you know I'm an avid Funko Pop collector. I've got a bit of a problem. I do love Funko Pops, I'm not going to lie. And I've, finally been able to pick up one of the beloved characters I've always wanted to get a Funko Pop of. They made a pop of him originally, but it's really, really expensive. It was retired long ago. And that was, of course, Sonic the Hedgehog. So Sonic was basically the icon of Sega. He was their Mario. And yeah, they've now made some new Funko Pops of Sonic the Hedgehog. So here we go, is Sonic. This one is Sonic with the emerald. So he's got a Chaos Emerald, which you might not be able to see in the box there. The box art's really cool. And on the back we've got the other characters. So we've got Sonic with the ring, Sonic with the emerald. We've got Shadow, Dr. Eggman or Dr. Robotnik from the UK. Super Sonic, I'd love to get that one. And then Shadow with KO. Okay, so I'm going to take him out of the box and have a look at him. Okay, so there's Sonic out of the box. He looks really cool. This pop looks much better than the original one they made. He looks really cool. Got his spikes there. He looks really good, like the game character. The emerald looks really nice as well, nice and shiny. Really like that pop. That's a really, really cool Funko Pop. So Sonic's obviously the mascot or figurehead of Sega, so let's take a look at 3 other characters that came from Sega games. Joe Musashi, I hope I said that right, is the main hero in Sega's Shinobi series of video games, first introduced in 1987. The series was very popular during the late 80s to early 90s, and Joe became one of Sega's mascot characters. Shinobi was popular because of its good quality graphics at the time, the side-scrolling gameplay and the music, and high level of difficulty. Joe's main weapon is his shurikens, or throwing knives, as well as his use of magical ninjutsu attacks. Next up, we're going to go with a boss or villain to the game that he's in, and it's Death Adder. Death Adder is a tyrannical giant who wears a full iron helmet, pointed spoulders, and wields an enormous double axe. In addition to his brutal strength and speed, he can also cast magical spells. He is, of course, the main villain of the original side-scrolling hack-and-slash beat-em-up game, Golden Axe, which takes place in a medieval fantasy world where the 3 heroes are tasked with defeating Death Adder and retrieving the Golden Axe. Last up we have Echo the Dolphin. Echo is a time-travelling bottlenose dolphin from the game of the same name, Echo the Dolphin. Echo goes on a quest to discover why animals are disappearing from the ocean. His quest takes him to Atlantis and 55 million years into the past, and even combating extraterrestrials on board an alien spacecraft. The game boasted amazing gameplay, very different to many of the games of the time. Next up, I'm going to review one of my favourite games on the Sega Megadrive or Sega Genesis, and it's Streets of Rage 2. I'm reviewing this game because it was chosen on a poll that I also posted on Twitter, where I gave you a choice of 4 games, and you guys voted for Streets of Rage 2 to be reviewed. Known as Streets of Rage 2 in the West and Bare Knuckle 2 in Japan, it was a side-scrolling beat-em-up game published by Sega in 1992 for the Sega Mega Drive Genesis. It was the sequel to Streets of Rage and introduced 2 new characters to the lineup of Axel Stone and Blaze Fielding from the original game. These new characters being Eddie Skate Hunter and Max Thunder. So the plot: 1 year has passed since the events of the first game. To celebrate the defeat of the mysterious Mr. X and his organisation, the Syndicate, Adam Hunter, Axel and Blaze meet up at a favourite night spot. The next day, Axel gets a phone call from Adam's brother Skate to say their home has been ransacked and Adam was missing. On the front door, a pic of Adam chained up at the feet of Mr. X. Axel and Blaze team up again to rescue Adam with the aid of Skate and Axel's wrestler buddy Max. The quartet go off to bring down the Syndicate and Mr. X and rescue Adam. Although Streets of Rage 2 plays very similar to the original, it improves and refines much of the gameplay. One of the biggest changes is the replacement of the original special attack, which was calling a police car to bring big damage to all on-screen enemies. This time, individual special attacks performed by each character that deplete some of the health, and now more unique. You work your way through various stages, defeating various henchmen and bosses until you come face to face with Mr. X. Upon release, Streets of Rage 2 received wide critical acclaim, with scores above 90% from most video game magazines at the time, many proclaiming it to be the best side-scrolling beat-em-up, above Final Fight and Double Dragon. Its positive reception was in part to its fantastic gameplay, but also for its techno-based chiptune soundtrack. especially due to the audio limitations of the Megadrive/Genesis console. Still to this day, many gamers tout Streets of Rage 2 as having some of the best video game music of all time. Streets of Rage 2 was and still is a fantastic game and certainly holds a special place in my heart, and I will rate it as follows. Last up, I'm going to take a look at 3 games that I still own on Sega Megadrive to this day. They're 3 of my favourite games. Pretty much the reason I bought the Sega Megadrive console. The first one was Altered Beast, which at the time came with the Sega Megadrive, and I really wanted it. I remember seeing this, I believe, on a show which was called Games Master in the UK, where they played games. And it was pretty much the go-to to find out about new games and games that are out at the time that you might not have. I see it on there. I really wanted it. I thought it looked really cool, the fact you could change into a beast. So I pretty much bought the Sega Mega Drive for this game. Another game that I pretty much wanted to get the console so I could obtain was this game, and it's Splatterhouse 2. Absolutely amazing game. At the time, I was coming into my early teens. I was sort of coming across horror films and stuff like that. I'd watched Friday the 13th, and this iconic sort of guy in a mask, much like Jason Voorhees from Friday the 13th, really stood out to me. So I really wanted this game, and I loved it. I sunk so many hours into this game. It was pretty difficult for me at the time, but I really enjoyed that. And this game wasn't a game that I particularly bought the console for, but it was a game that I picked up really dirt cheap at the time, and I remember sinking a lot of hours into playing this game also, and it is Space Harrier 2. Not one of the best games ever made, but I just really did sink a lot of time into this game, because at the time I managed to get hold of the Mega Drive console with Altered Beast, and I didn't have a lot of other money, and I picked this probably up for about £5 at the time, with some spare pocket money, so I had a couple of games to play, and I just remember playing this quite a lot. This episode, guys, has been brought to you by the word blast, as in blast processing.
The Sega Genesis has blast processing. Super Nintendo doesn't. So what's blast processing do? And what if you don't have blast processing?
And FUNKO Raptor, which was a medium-sized theropod dinosaur that lived in what is now Japan. Okay, thanks for joining me, guys, in this 3rd episode of Nostalgic Things. I hope you've enjoyed this little journey into the past of video game history with one of gaming's amazing producers of games and consoles. Certainly one of my favourites. And to me, it's a shame that they're out of the console making game and they don't really make any consoles anymore. But I do look back on Sega with really fond memories. Okay, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this video. As always, if you have, please give this video a like, give it a big thumbs up. Leave your comments in the comment section below. Anything you want to talk about Sega-wise. What were your favourite consoles that Sega produced? What were your favourite games that Sega produced? What were your favourite characters that were produced in a Sega game? And if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel for more retro game goodness, for more retro nostalgia, nerdy stuff. The next episode of Nostalgic Things, I do one a month generally, so if you subscribe you'll know when I post the next one if you've enjoyed this. Okay, thanks for watching, guys, and I hope to see you in the next one. Take it easy.